Christina, thank you so much for joining me on the Teachers Podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you have got so much to talk about. I'm thinking, where are we going to end up going with this? Because you've done so many things, so I'm excited to kind of delve in. And so the best thing you can do really is just give us a backstory of everything you've done so far. Because I know you've talked about a lot, I might interject and ask you some questions along the way. But I think that's the best place we can start. So give me your life story.
How long have you got?
Well, an hour and a half max.
Okay, when I was at school, I loved primary school. Secondary school I really didn't like. I was really quiet and shy. And I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I left school at 16, couldn't wait to get out. I wasn't badly behaved or anything, I was just very, very shy. And I nearly lost my first job because I wouldn't speak to people.
Wow.
So I got a Saturday job in a hairdressing salon. And they said to me, look, unless you speak to people next Saturday when you come, you haven't got a full-time job here. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. I just wanted to get out. Yeah. I only got the job on my appearance because I used to dress quite wacky.
Right.
And so I thought, gosh, I felt like the bottom had fallen out of my world because my parents are really hard-working. I don't come from a privileged background, and I thought, I need to earn money. And so I went home and I thought, right, so the next time I go, I'm going to imagine flicking a switch in my head when I walk through the door and I'm not going to be myself. Okay. And I did that, and I never stopped talking ever since. I found it really hard. It was really hard to do. I had to force myself to speak.
It's weird because you changed your mindset without really knowing how to. Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, it just kind of, I thought, I've got to do something. I thought, right, I'll act and not be myself.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could do it because I wasn't being me.
Yeah, yeah.
But in actual fact, there was a voice in there waiting to come out. Yeah. Just needed teasing out. And do you know what? They did me a huge favour by saying that to me because it really helped me.
And do you feel like you are yourself now?
Yes, I am, yeah. I feel more comfortable
now. You're
not
acting every day?
No. Well, that depends on that.
Okay, so from there?
So from there, I'll cut it short a little bit because I ended up going, I didn't stay in the hairdressing. I didn't want to do that really. I just wanted to do something that helped me to build my confidence.
Yeah, yeah.
I did a number of roles like selling jeans in a menswear shop. Yeah. And then I thought, right, I'm bored now. So I started to work for a company, kind of an admin assistant, and then I got them to sponsor me for my HNC in business and finance. Wow. So I went 2 evenings a week and half day on a Saturday. I excelled in marketing analysis and communications, getting distinctions for both. I did economics, did a whole array of things. Wow. But I wouldn't change what I did because it made me what I am today. Yeah. And although it was hard work going 2 evenings a week and half day on Saturday, it really helped me because I was actually in the working environment, learning at the same time, and that helped me with my coursework and everything. So after that, I worked my way through the company, worked my way up to product management level. And then, so over the years, I've done different things also to do with marketing. I had my own children who were both early babies, premature. My daughter was born at 28 weeks, my son 35 weeks, both very poorly. We're all really poorly. And then whilst I had my children at home, I did lots of fundraising and voluntary work for various charities. One was Bliss, which is a national charity for the newborn. Okay. And so over the years then, I knew that I couldn't go back into the role that I was in the marketing role because I'd never be at home. So then I applied for a role with the Cystic Fibrosis Trust. I worked for them for 11 years as a fundraising manager up and down the country, but I could work from home, so I was able to be around for the children, which was really important for me. And then I got to a stage, right, they're at school and I'm more settled now, and I'd like to work for myself, I'd like to write. Because I was really quiet and shy as a child. I didn't want my children to feel as shy and fearful of things as I was. I was scared as a dark, spiders, you name it. I was scared of it. So I thought if I can do something that can help them, that's got to be a good thing. And that's when I wrote my first story, which was Welcome to the World of Felicity Fly, which addressed the dark, spiders, just loud noises, things that I was scared of as a child and children are scared of as well. And so that was my first book, and that was in May 2012 when that came out. And
so how did you get published for that then?
Right, so I wrote these stories and I left them in a box file for quite a number of years. I thought one day I might do something with those stories. And I thought, you know what, if you never try, you never know. Better to try and fail than to not try at all. And that's what I say. I do visit lots of primary schools, and I always say that to children. Sometimes we don't know what we want to do. We take opportunities, we take those opportunities, make the best of them and learn from them.
And sometimes you end up doing something amazing, because I think I did the same thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I took opportunities. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and then you learn from them and you find your niche, don't you? You find out what you really enjoy doing. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. But I did a lot of research and I thought, you know what, if I send this to any publishers, they're just going to blow me out of the water. She's never written before. It's quite a pretentious industry. So I did a lot of research and I decided that I would look at publishing. And so I did. And when I looked at it, publishers, you hardly got any money for, you know, you give them your words, they would get an illustrator, you would never meet them, and they'll put this thing together. You've got no control over it. I wanted control over it. And so I carried on doing that, and I published for other people as well now. All my books have an educational element. I struggled as a child at school. I was never really engaged in reading, so I wanted to put audio. So with all of my stories, there's an audio with it as well. So I'm now recognised as a publisher. I publish for other people as well. So all my books have an audio, so children can listen and read along as well, because they all come on at different stages. And I remember when I was little, I had a Cinderella book, and it had a tape with it. I'm of an age where I had tapes.
And so
so
did I when I was little.
And it was a pink tape, and I loved listening. It was like Cinderella, all these different characters. I loved all the sounds of their voices. And when I was little, I always loved to mimic people's voices. And so in my books, you've got anything from an Indian butterfly, Jamaican dragonfly, to Brianna Beetle with her coat as black as streak and a scouse beetle. So it's like when I go into schools, I do read aloud interactive sessions, and it's World Read Aloud Day on the 5th of February, so I love that.
Right, okay. And are you going into a school for that?
I'm actually going into a library. I'm going into a library. Booked it well in advance, and so some schools don't know it's World Read Aloud Day, but it's really important. I mean, with the charity setup as well, I encourage read aloud interactive sessions. What they do, they have a 45-minute read aloud interactive session. They're not sat at a desk, they're not writing, they're getting involved, and that can have a huge positive impact on children.
I do think you're hearing the language as well, aren't you? Some children don't hear the kind of language at home that's going to bring them on, but in a book it's more likely that they're going to find that, so it's hearing the language as well.
And when I was at school, at primary school, I remember the teacher was lovely, but she read so much monotone, and I used to be away with if my attention wasn't grabbed, I'd be away with the fairies. I think, right, I'm bored now, because it's like blah, blah, blah. So that's what I would have been better if they'd have been a bit more animated or put a bit more expression into telling the stories. And I find that with a lot of children.
I can't say if my teachers were monotone or not, but I was definitely away with the fairies till at least year 5. Really was. I was just playing in my head. I was daydream, and I was just at home playing with my toys. But thankfully I came round and learned everything from year 5 onwards. And I still did okay. Okay then, so after you've published that first book,
well, it was a great success. So there's a free kind of bit like Charlie and Lola animated on YouTube with it, which people utilise as well. That's free.
Do you feel like your experience in marketing helped you get the book out there? Because that can be what the publisher can bring as well, the marketing aspect.
Definitely, but that said, I met that many different people. I met a political correspondent when I was doing my first book signing in Waterstones in Leeds, and it was a big publisher, and she said that they did hardly anything for her marketing. She did it all of herself. She organised all her own book signings.
Oh, really?
And then I spoke to her when I was setting up my first bank account, my business account. The lady I set up my account with, her husband had a book published. He received £1.04 in a year.
Wow.
They have so many people that they publish for, they don't have the time to market everybody's book.
Yeah,
of course, you've got the big names, and it will always be
who don't always write the books as well.
I have lots of ghostwriters.
I've heard about a few children's authors who are not actually writing the books.
No,
I won't say who they are.
Well, I've been sat in different WH Smiths and bookstores up and down the country, and obviously you're not like a well-known person, and you sit there and you see some of these books up on the top shelf because of who they are, not what they've written.
Yeah.
And some have been a load of tosh because I've looked at them and I thought, well, do you know what, mine's better than that one.
Yeah,
I know, it's subjective and it's my work, but I think, well, do you know, and I work really hard, and lots of other authors out there work really hard as well. Yeah. But you know what, those books that are quite rubbish, they do end up in, shipped out of the shops into charity shops and other places, or man cannot live off book sales alone unless you're a big name like David Walliams or Julia Donaldson or whatever.
No, you
it's
can't.
I just really enjoy writing about various topics and helping children to understand things. I mean, I was rubbish at maths at primary school. Again, it didn't interest me, so I'll be away with the fairies, so I wasn't listening. But I would have learned better in a visual way, and that's why I put triangular Trev and the shape idols together. So I brought in isosceles, Irene, perpendicular, perinogon, normal, equilateral, Eric. What they all do, all these characters, they all meet up and make up a song to enter into the band idol competition.
Okay.
And then they all sing about who they are. For instance, equilateral, Eric will say is equal on all sides. So there's a song there, a rhyming song, so the children can visualise what the shape looks like, but also they know what it stands for as well within the song. So it just makes it more fun.
So do you feel with every book that you've written, you're kind of drawing on difficulties that you had in your childhood, what you feel you struggled with?
Yeah, it's therapy. So writing for me is therapy.
Yeah.
But it's actually helping other children. But because I think visual learning for me, black and white learning, just a non-starter for me. But the visual.
I also find authors as well, I feel like they can tap into the children's memory so much more. I remember maybe being in my 20s and thinking, why can I not remember these things from when I was young? I used to have an amazing imagination. I feel like it's gone. Whereas authors, even if they're writing for adults, they seem to kind of keep that, I don't know, I can't describe it, but it's like a tunnel that is still open, that is often shut off, and I think that's amazing.
I mean, I always put myself back into that child's head. I mean, I would say I loved my primary school. And I loved the free reading.
You just didn't want to listen.
I loved the free reading corner. I didn't like the books that we had to read because we had to learn certain words, because I found them quite boring. But what I did like is going to the free reading corner. And I always used to go to books that had more factual information in. And I remember looking at a Ladybird book, which was talking about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And I just remember learning that from looking at a free reader book that I had.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the Share Some Secrets book that I wrote, that encourages children to speak out, to share their troublesome secrets. With that one, I wanted a book, because one of my friends said to me, can you do something to help this? Because lots of news articles coming out about, children have been abused as children and carrying it through adulthood and kind of waiting so long to speak out about it, and it's really harmed them. And so I put myself back into a child's head, and I thought, as a child I was so quiet and shy, I wouldn't have spoken out. And so I wanted to write something that could encourage children to identify with with the story. So it's incorporated into the story, it's not scary. The NSPCC endorsed it, partnership with them, it's in the Police and Crime Commissioners Lancashire Exploitation Toolkit, so it's in lots of different places. It's now been recognised globally as well, and I got Sheffield Hallam University students to animate it, to make it a free resource online as well.
Wow.
So it's animated with the words and sound.
Okay.
And
we'll make sure the link to that is in the show notes.
Yeah, well, that's really important, because it's not a profit-making thing. I just felt really passionate about it. And the book is in the NSPCC online shop, and it's raising funds for them. So that I was made an honorary member of the NSPCC Council for the work that I did, as well as a couple of marathons and runs that I do from, and raising funds that way as well.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But no, so
tell us the name of that book again.
Share Some Secrets.
Share Some Secrets. So when you did Yeah, do you want to show the camera, obviously, if you're on the podcast?
So that's the NSPCC. So anybody wants one, just go straight to the NSPCC because it's raising funds for them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you can get a free version of that online. So your friend asked you to do that, and obviously you said when you write your books, you're thinking a lot about your past when you were a child. What kind of research did you have to do for that?
Right, so I spoke to lots of people who have been abused, who have taken it all through their life. You know,
How did you source those people?
I did when I was doing lots of book signings up and down the country, from where I lived to Ipswich to London, wherever. I did a lot of research. I had leaflets, and I spoke to lots of different people. Then I had people calling me. I spoke to people in person. I spoke to an abuse lawyer, spent time with an abuse lawyer.
So did you actually tell them when you were doing book signings, this is the next book I'm doing, have you got anything for me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so because I was looking so I had a Kickstarter for it as well, to raise funds to do it. And so I actually read the story to a lady called Christina Gabbitas, who's a solicitor in Leeds. And I just handwrote it on paper and I read it to her, and she said, you need to do something with that. That sounds really good. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this. And then I went into a girls' school in Wakefield, and she really liked the story. She said, I want a copy for each of our libraries. And this is Wakefield Girls' School. And they all endorsed it, as did I sent it to the NSPCC, and they said it... the testimonials in the book as well anyway. The Director of Communications, Ali Jeremy, and Childline, they really liked it because it's not a threatening book. It kind of encourages them to speak out, and they can identify with it. So I completely lost my train of thought. What was the question? I'm sounding like a politician now.
What kind of research do you do?
Okay, so that formed part of my research, speaking to lots of different people. And even now, I get phone calls, I get messages saying how it is actually helping children to speak out. And I've had calls from Norway, Singapore, Australia. Just recently sent some books out to Switzerland. And because...
So are they translated then?
Pardon?
Are they translated?
They're not translated, no, but because it has audio, read along, English is the international language, which is really good for us. I have had it translated into Spanish.
I'm glad the podcast is in English.
I have had it translated into Spanish, but not a print version yet, or online version. There is that opportunity. It's coming. But yeah, so when I did the initial launch, which the Guardian attended, and they put it online, and I was getting calls from these different countries saying, do you know that this is all about your book? I said, well, yeah. But it was nice. It's the power of media. The online media is quite amazing. But the most important thing to me is actually it is helping. I know now that it's helping children to speak out. So that's one of my greatest achievements in life, I would say. But doing the research, and there was one lady I met, and she'd been abused by her father from the age of 5, and she'd gone through self-harm, attempted suicide, the whole lot, and they don't tend to speak out until they're either distanced from the perpetrator dies, or there's some reason they feel like they can. But what is good now, where we are now, is that we know a lot more. So people are coming out more. And I spoke to Andy Woodward, who's the first... a bit more trusted, maybe. Andy Woodward was the first footballer to speak out. And he said if he'd have had something like this when he was younger, it would have, planted the seed and thought, actually, I'm not alone. This happens to other people. I can tell someone. It's just giving him that message. And Andy is speaking at a conference I've got in March as well.
Right, okay. So this, just back to this book, is it a collection of stories? Is it one story?
It's just one story. It's about Millie and Billy, with the cat and the dog. And basically, Millie feels uncomfortable that her uncle, she feels uncomfortable when her uncle comes round to the home. Very hypersensitive abuse happens in and around the home environment. Sometimes parents will trust other members of family or distant members of family, or someone who babysits anything. And so she felt really uncomfortable. So Billy tries to get Millie to tell her mum and stepdad, but she won't speak to them. And so then he encourages her to tell his teacher, Mrs. Hurd, And so she tells her teacher, Mrs. Hurd, that she feels uncomfortable because he likes to look underneath her dress, and it makes her feel uncomfortable and alone. And so in the story, it kind of predominantly rhymes.
Yeah.
Children in the early years are more gravitate towards rhyme, more likely to read it. Yeah. But obviously it has the audio as well. Yeah. And so then she's at the beginning of the story. Mum says she has 2 secrets that she'd like to share. Yeah. But one to keep secret from the granny, because it's a surprise birthday party. So it was that difference between good and troublesome secrets.
Because that is difficult for children to understand sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So what age group would you say that this book is aimed at?
So from the age of 5 to 8, 9. Yeah. I have showed it to different people. One of my daughter's friends, who was she was 20 at the time, she said, "Oh, this is a really good book for anybody to look at."
Yes.
Because again, and I spoke at an early years conference in London. I spoke as part of Bradford's Safeguarding Children Week, and even then I had a lady who came, and she was a social worker, and she came up to me and she said, "I was abused as a child." She said, "I don't have any children, but I'm going to get this and I'm going to take it into the school nearest to me." Yeah. She said that would have helped her. So it's all about, I think, if you can educate children from a young age without it being too scary, but just kind of giving them the idea. Prevention is always better than trying to pick up the pieces afterwards, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, from a teacher's point of view, sometimes you just really don't have any idea, and you're juggling so many balls, you just might miss any kind of sign. There might not be any signs. But this is a great way to kind of open up the conversation as well, because I think it's a difficult conversation to broach, and how do you do it in a story is something we can all relate to as well.
Yeah, it is. But this is, so in some places they'll use it as part of a session, but then so just have it as a free reader. So there's somebody like me, as I was, love picking up the free readers. It's bright and colourful. It's not scary. It just kind of, though she's telling Mrs. Hurd, and then she's heavily praised for telling Mrs. Hurd by her parents as well. So at the end of the story, you've got Granny's surprise birthday party, which they celebrate.
Secret.
So it ends on and then as Millie's secret, that's on there separately as well, about them sharing their troublesome secrets. So it's worked really well. I'm really, really pleased and proud of that it's helping.
Well done. Yeah. Okay. So I was reading your backstory, and you've also done some work on. Have you done a book about knife crime that's not out yet?
Right. Yes. So.
So my question is, why do you believe it's important for children to learn about knife crime?
Because, well, it's really important because children are carrying knives because they think it's going to protect them. But statistics are, if they're carrying a knife, they're more likely to get stabbed with a knife or harmed with a knife. Yeah. Because as soon as you show it. So I was approached by the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office of Homicide.
Which is brilliant that you were approached.
Yeah, no, it was fab. No,
like a safeguarding expert now.
Yeah, no, I'm just, But the thing is, so they said, "Do you think you could do something because of the success of this one that would help educate children, from a young age, on the dangers of, knife crime and the gangs and the drugs and how they get involved with it?" And so I love a challenge. And so here we have, so yes, this resource will come out on the 13th of February. So it's called No More Knives. And there is a website, nomoreknifecrime.com, which has been set up as well. So this story is about 5 friends who all meet in the park, just like friends do. They go and sit in the park listening to music. And then there's this guy comes along called Steve, and he's just moved into the area, and he kind of starts chatting to them, and he grooms them basically into getting involved in taking packages to different areas, which is the county lines. So basically what they end up doing is he grooms them. They go back to his new flat. He says that he delivers these packages, he gets paid lots of money. All these children have their own backstory. In actual fact, this could be a really thick book, but I had to condense it down into like a comic strip format, so that more likely to read it. So if something's illustrated, they're more likely to read it. Yeah. So that was the hardest part, was doing that really. And so they so that this involves them taking different packages to different places, and on one of the houses that they go to, one of the young boys is really scared. They do, because they see lots of knives around, because they open those packages with knives, which are drugs. And so he picks a knife up and puts it in his side pocket, and he says to one of the girls, "Oh, I thought that was really scary. I picked up one of the knives." And he said, she said, "Why have you picked up a knife?" He said, "Oh, for protection." And she said, "How is it going to protect you?" So it's just letting children know that, you know, that's why he's put it in there. There's lots of choices and consequences involved in this story. There'll be a resource with it as well, of question and answers. And so and they're giving dedicated phone lines, which is what happens as well. They befriend them, say that, because they're all these children in the teenage years, even, you know, children from all backgrounds, less privileged, but even more privileged is that, you know what it's like being a teenager in a teenage head. Lots of things going through your head, going through lots of changes, and it's like, "Oh, my parents don't understand me." But then the groomers is like, "Oh, we understand you. We're like a family. Be part of our family." And that's how they get groomed and they're believed. And then there's show of money, of watches, of like, this is what you can have. But at the end of the story, I'm cutting it short here, is that they all meet in this cafe, Runner's Cafe, which they're supposed to collect their money from for delivering all these packages, and they're not given their money. And so it ends up in some kind of, one of the bad guys ends up punching one of the others, and the young lad who's taken the knife gets his knife out, so the other guy's got a knife, so stabs him in the leg. It's not gory, it's kind of, so this is aimed at children aged 10 to 16, so it's giving them,
this is how it happens.
This is how it happens. These are your choices. These are your consequences. So I've spoken to lots of different people about this. An ex-gang crime member who was involved in drugs, county lines. He was stabbed. His friend was shot dead. So it's kind of.
How do you get the contacts to do this kind of research?
Police and Crime Commissioner's Office.
Oh, excellent. So that's great. They said to you, "Can you help us? Can you do this? But we'll also help you." That's
brilliant. So it was a case of, so this gentleman called Mo Timbo, he's from Peckham in London, and he was involved in all of this. And basically what happened with him is they had a particular territory, and he said that he went, they had this guy who came onto their territory, so they stole his mobile phone. He was on a moped.
Right.
So they stole his mobile phone because it was in their area. Never thought anything about it, but then they got wind that you know, this gang were looking for them. And so what he did was went home, got lots of knives out of his kitchen drawer, put them in his pocket. So this gang are walking over to them both. Little did they know that one of them had a gun and shot his friend dead. And he was stabbed and left for dead. So then that was a wake-up call for him, going to prison. And he's now a reformed character. He's a pastor, and he's helping to educate other young people on the dangers and to stay away from it. So he now lives in Hull.
Right, okay.
He has a pastor in a church that he, you know, helping to educate a lot of the children. So aside of that, I've spoken to different police personnel, a lady called Inspector Kirsty Tock. And I wanted to know, because obviously all these children are young and they don't have any criminal record. So what I wanted to know is, will these children be arrested? And the answer is yes. But the consequences of what happens to them will be different. They try to keep them out of the criminal system, because once they're in it, it's hard to get out of it. So basically they're all taken to the police station, you know, arrested, taken to the police station and questioned. So children need to know that. This isn't just something that they can do lightly.
Sometimes you think, well, I'm underage, so it doesn't affect me.
But it does. So then after that, they'll be questioned they'll be seen by youth workers, and then it will be decided what happens to them. And this is what is said at the end of the story. But it's educating children and parents and teachers as to what actually does happen. And this is happening and coming to more areas. So you've got London, which is obviously the worst for the knife crime and the drugs. But then you've got Manchester, Leeds, and they're actually filtrating now through to the various areas like Lincolnshire. So they'll target areas, new areas, towns and villages. So it's educating children, the wider society
Yeah.
about what's happening. So there'll be a number of these that will be, the police and crime commissioners will be funding so many, and then they will be available online to buy. For schools, obviously for a larger amount it would be cheaper for them, but we have to cover our costs, and any proceeds from this will go to, any sales will go to charity, which is the charity I set up.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing, thank you. So I was going to ask, how you did your research, but you kind of answered that. So this book is for 5 to 8-year-olds, and then the knife book is obviously 11 to 16. How do you pitch your language? How do you pitch it differently? Do you find that difficult? Or?
Right, now this one, so they obviously, predominantly my books, like the Felicity Fly series, aimed at 4 to 7. 4-year-old can't read them, but you read with them. Triangulative, aged 8 upwards, because of the understanding of the terminology, mathematical terminology. So this is the first one I've written for a slightly older audience. And so, the lingo, so I did a lot of research into the lingo that they kind of use at this age, but also what I was quite mortified about is that my name is used as a name for I think it's crystal meth. They have all these different terminology in different areas for different drugs.
Wow.
And there's an A to Z, would you believe, of drugs, and there's so many different words. So different areas will use a different name for a different drug, because so that they think people aren't going to identify with it.
Yeah.
But I was kind of mortified, and cocaine, they'll call it flake. So I mentioned flake.
Right.
So, but they're all different in different areas. So it's kind of researching how children speak. I got my son to read it. He's 21. I've got different age groups to have a read of it and see if they understand. And for all of my books, I use an editor.
Yeah.
And so I sent it, and Rebecca is very good, very critical. And she came back. She said, "Wow." She said, "That's amazing." She said, "Is this a real, true life story?" She said, "Because it sounds like one."
Good.
And she's excellent at English.
Yeah. Good.
So it's nice to get that testimony from people.
Yeah.
But within the story, I wanted to incorporate what happens and how they end up involved in the knife crime, the lead up to it as well.
Yeah. So do you know how? So you're publishing your own books, and obviously you've got an editor. Do you source your own illustrator as well then?
Yeah, there's a number of people involved in any book, so it's not kind of, although publishing one, it's like there's a number of people involved in it.
Yeah.
So I use a illustrator, graphic designer, editor, the same process as you would in a publisher would use. It's just that I've got control over it, which is what I like.
And how do you find marketing it?
Bloody hard work.
It is
hard
work.
Sorry.
It's a clean podcast.
So you'll have to beep that out. So it's it's hard work. It's like anything. If you can have the best book in the world, but unless you get it out there, nobody's going to know about it.
Yeah, this is
and
it.
I do think there's lots of talented people out there.
Yeah.
That don't get the work out, that would warrant a better audience than some of our celebrities
absolutely.
So it is hard work, because especially in the market of books and stories, it's absolutely saturated is the market.
Yeah, there's so many.
But your picture book market is still in a growth area, because parents still want to read to the children, grandparents.
Yeah,
so
and we get bored of reading the same thing over and over.
Yeah. But children like it because they know the story and they can read it to you. And then they're turning the pages.
Yeah, there is an element of that actually. But we did the book Advent this year. We got 24 new books, and I was like, I'll choose about 4 Christmas ones and the rest not, so I can get rid of some of the really bad ones.
Yeah.
Don't know what. Sometimes I went in before I had children. I used to go to like Home Bargains or something, buy a book for 99p. There's a reason why they're 99p. Like, why do you want to read that one again?
Yeah.
So yeah, I bought better books, but it did cost me a fortune.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to read to them every night. It's important to do. Okay then. So through your work, I suppose really, you started writing books, and then it's kind of taken a turn where you've ended up moving into kind of more of a difficult conversation area. What do you feel that you've learnt about safeguarding throughout this process that you feel that every teacher should know that maybe they don't?
Well, I mean, I'm sure teachers are very kind of informed about it from the information that they receive. But I've learned a lot from actually speaking to people who have been abused and how they are. In fact, I've been into a school where a child has been 2 weeks previous to me going into the school.
Wow.
And that was hard, I think, for the teachers, because teachers have got a really tough job, and I applaud any teacher, by the way. I think all amazing. Because
it's really hard, isn't it?
Because you've got to be everything. You've got to be a teacher, you've got to be a social worker, you know, you've got to be a counsellor, you've got to be everything, and it's really hard. And I do think that teachers should get more help within schools. I really do. So, you know, just speaking and kind of recognising some of the signs. For instance, I mean, my son went to a school and he was struggling because a girl there had told him a lot of information, and she was actually self-harming.
Right.
And when I contacted the school, oh no, she's fine, she's really bubbly, really bright, and she hasn't got any problems. And you know, we speak to her, we ask her, and you know, so she has that facade of being bubbly and that nothing's wrong, but in actual fact, deep down there was. And in the end, the parents were they were really pleased that I'd said something, because when it came to it, yes, she was. Yeah. And so I think sometimes when you think that children are okay because they seem happy-go-lucky,
especially when they're in the teenage years as well, they can fake it a lot more, can't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. But even a small child, there's lots of signs. But you know, I'm sure that lots of teachers are very clued up, especially nowadays. But it must be really hard. But I've just learnt a lot by speaking to people, and listening to children, and children that can be clingy. It's just there's the whole array of signs.
I suppose the difficulty is that children can do those things.
I know.
And be okay. You know.
Yeah, it's hard, and
they go through phases, don't they, of being clingy and not being clingy, and everything's fine. Yeah,
I know. It is hard, so it's
very difficult.
You know, it is, and that's why I thought it was really important to have some kind of resource just to
open up the conversation.
Yeah, and to make them understand that they don't need to feel alone. They can tell someone, because a perpetrator will say, "No one will believe you. No one will believe you. They'll think you're bad for sharing your secret with them," because that's what. Because in one of my conferences I went to, and she was a teacher, and she said, "Oh, we don't use the word secret in our house." I said, "Well, that's fine." I said, "But unfortunately, it's been in the English language since 1840. I can't remember when it was, but it's been in the English language for a long time, and the word secret is used, so we can't get away from that. The perpetrators do use that, so we just need to inform them that, you know."
And also, why wouldn't you use it? Because, like you said, you know, you can have bad secrets and good secrets. I mean, good secrets like classroom secrets. Yeah. Of course. But yeah, no, that is it. It's not about the words you use. That's not going to make a difference, is it?
No.
You know, you need to tackle the problem in the first place. So you mentioned a conference that you're running in Leeds. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this was born out of the Shares and Secrets book, when I noticed there's lots of conferences in London all about safeguarding child protection, and it's expensive to travel to London on the train.
I go a lot.
and then you've got to pay for the conference as well.
Yeah.
And what I found, I thought, well, this is just so expensive, but we need one in Yorkshire, because, you know, there doesn't seem to be many. And so I thought, well, I'll just set up this conference, as I do. I'm quite impulsive like that. After doing a bit of research. And so the first one I held was at the Royal Armouries. And so it's about getting different speakers together, sharing information. And this is open to teachers, public sector workers, prison service, the whole shebang. So it's about bringing people together. And the speakers that we have, learning from those speakers and questioning them and finding out the latest information. So the one I have this year, I have Jim Gamble, who set up the original child exploitation operations in London.
Wow.
And he's now, his company's called INEC, and they've got a Safer Schools
app. So he's reformed? So is he reformed?
No. Jim Gamble was a police officer, has a police medal.
Just when you said he set up the exploitation, I'm thinking, did he exploit it or not?
No. He set it up for the government.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then they have this Safer Schools app, which they're bringing into schools, he's talking about online safety, and and informs teachers of the latest apps that are they're up and coming, and to make them safer within school. So he's going to be there talking about that. He's a very good speaker. Yeah. I have a gentleman called Justin Humphreys who has been commissioned by the government, the APPG, or parliamentary group, reporting on the abuse within faith. So he's delivering a paper on that, which he's doing with Shara Champions chairing that. So he's speaking on behalf of that. Andy Woodward, who was the first footballer to speak out, he suffered at the hands of Vanel for many, many years. So he's telling his story. So it's called abuse of power within a position of trust, which is what kind of happens. You trust someone and it's the abuse of that power. Anne-Marie Christian, who's an international safeguarding consultant. She's NSPCC credited. The NSPCC come in to talk about the Wild West web campaign as well. So it's a very informative conference, and any teachers who do attend get a CPD. But also I'll help you. I'll send you a link for teachers for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that you've talked about will be on the show notes.
Yeah, but I think it'll be a really useful conference. Kept the cost right down. It's not for profit. Anything that's left goes to Children's Literature Festival charity that I set up as well. So no, I think it's a really useful conference. It's on the 12th of March, and it's in the daytime as well.
So it's in Leeds, and how much is it?
It's at different prices for students it's £50. So if you go onto so I'll give you a link.
Yeah, do. Thank you.
For a 20% discount.
That's brilliant. Wow. I feel like I've learned so much. So thank you. Okay, just a couple of closing questions I want to ask then. I ask everyone these. So when you were at school, even though you were asleep most of the time like me, who was your favourite teacher and why?
There was probably a couple of them. In primary school, a lady called Mrs. Proctor, because she always had a smile and she was always approachable and was really friendly, which was quite different from some of the teachers who were quite austere and strict. So a strict teacher, not good for me. I closed down. So Mrs. Proctor was lovely. She always had a smile, and that's why I liked her, and that's why I think I learned more from her than the strict teachers.
She's more awake.
Because she engaged you more, because it was like she was interested in you.
Yes.
And she was happy, and that makes a huge difference.
Sometimes I think as well, if you're a quiet child in the class, sometimes it's really easy for the teacher to be focused on everybody else.
Just ignore you because you're quiet.
And I don't think I know from a teacher's point of view, no teacher ever means to do that. Sometimes you're just swept away with everything you're trying to juggle. Because
there's so many children in a class, it's really hard for teachers in that. So I do understand that. I read an article once, it's going back about 15 years ago, about this head teacher who took her children out of school when it was a SATs. She thought it was a complete nonsense because it was just teaching children how to pass a test. But she said that what happens when you've got too many in a class is that you ignore the quiet ones, but you're not doing it because, for any reason, that they're actually not causing you a problem. The ones that are shouting out, usually the ones that don't need some help, but they end up getting more attention. So I understand that. So she found it hard when you've got a lot of children.
And it's so difficult as well. I read once that teachers are so exhausted at the end of the day because the amount of decisions they have to make in quick succession, and decision making is actually quite tiring. And the only way I've kind of come round to understand that now, being the CEO, I'm like, it's the same thing. All the decisions you kind of have to make in quick succession. That's why they go home from the end of the day so exhausted. It's not necessarily the physical aspects of the job. I mean, I suppose it's not that physical, the up and the down, but it's the
mentally
constant,
demanding.
mentally demanding. Okay, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I always, when I go into primary schools and they say, what did you want to be? I said, you know what? I never knew. I said, and sometimes you need to understand that actually you don't always know what you want to do. I said, but you know what? I always say, but you know what? It's not a problem because we're all different. I said, and even when some of my friends have left school and they go to college, and still sometimes you don't know what you want to do, and you've been to university. I said, it's about taking different choices in life
that you like.
That you like. No,
Yeah.
I said, because there'll be jobs out there you've never even heard of or even existed. I said, so I always say, well, take different opportunities, learn from those, and then you find what you actually, your niche is, what you enjoy.
I agree with that. And I think, you know, my daughter says all the time, I ask her what she wants to be when she grows up. She's 3 and she says a doctor. She's been saying a doctor a lot. And then the other day she did say, I want to be a teacher, like Mr. McMahon, who was a PE teacher actually, and then she started doing crab exercises. So she said, then I'll be able to do this all day. I was like, yeah, I'm sure that's what he does all day. But then she often flips back to the doctor. But I think how many children, you know, say they want to be a doctor or a teacher, but then when they grow up, they realise when they get to 16 they don't want to do that. And I think for me, I can't remember what I said all the time. But when I got to 16, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But like you, okay, well, what do I want to get out of a college course? What do I want to get out of a university course? And you figure it out, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
We don't need to know.
No, we all find our way eventually, don't we?
I think there is a lot of emphasis on, choose these A-levels so you can get into this university and get onto this university course. And that is a bit of a shame, because you're kind of expected to know at 16 whether you want to be a dentist or not. And if you don't know whether you want to be a dentist, then you're going to struggle to make it.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
it's difficult.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
Everything that we've talked about will be on the show notes. And thank you.
Okay, thank you.